You know, I really need to redesign my VTuber Tsu, but I'm gonna have to redesign her, redraw her, and re-rig her, and that sounds like a major headache that's gonna take weeks, and I don't even know if it's worth it. Because it's just so much effort. Do you think I could have AI redesign Tsu for me? Hi, I'm Kit, and today I'm going to be ranting about AI design versus human design. So without further ado, get yourself something to drink, and let's get started on this video. Now, quick disclaimer if you haven't seen me before, I don't normally do my makeup like this. This is a bit. This is AI, this is human. That's all that is. Okay, disclaimer over. Woo! Now, don't worry, Tsu fanboys and fangirls. I'm not actually going to scrap her for a design made by AI, because I'd still have to redraw her and re-rig her, so I might as well redesign her myself as well. But I thought, hey, let's give AI a chance to really prove itself to a notorious AI hater. Me. Fuck you, AI. Now, I'll acknowledge that there is a lot of better programs, especially if you're willing to pay money for them, but I'm a cheapskate, and I didn't want to make an account, so I used Craiyon? I don't know. So the only input I really have is trying my best to describe what I want it to make, which would be Tsu in this case. And there is an art to this. There was a lot of trial and error. I messed up a whole bunch. From getting botched Sonic OCs to 2000 scene girls with cat ears on their heads, but in orange. It took a while to get something that I was comfortable claiming would be the other Tsu. And I struck gold? Fool's gold? I struck something with the search term orange long-haired girl with fox ears and tail with golden eyes wearing a hoodie. VTuber. That was the important distinction. And these are our lovely, lovely ladies. And let me tell you, they got a face for radio. Or the Fallout. Whichever one happens first. And now, I could compare these two, but I feel like that's unfair. They are very different styles. I have a very unique style of my own, I'll be the first to say that. And Tsu falls into it perfectly. These other girls are more of a generic anime style, so comparing them right now would be comparing Kirby to Bayonetta. Not really fair. So I'll redraw both of them in my style, so then we can have an accurate comparison. And who knows, maybe AI really will shine and let me know that, no, I can design just as good as you. I just suck at drawing. Now, unfortunately, I can't draw all 9 of these lovely ladies, because I'm lazy and I want to draw something else in my free time. So I decided to pick the one that had the most accurate to the prompt, so hair, long, and orange. Traits, fox. Hoodie, actually I didn't care about that, but I did care about gold eyes. I very much focused on that for no reason other than I thought it was important. So out of all of the girls, I picked this one. And I don't want to call her the other Tsu or AI Tsu because that's just going to get messy, so we're going to call her Yami Tsu. Because I've been watching a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that is the best naming system. Just putting Yami and then their name. Yami Merrick, Yami Yugi, Yami Bakura. You know these men if you've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you haven't, go watch Yu-Gi-Oh! It's great. Now, first off, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, and it's that I don't really have the best picture of Yami Tsu because of how she's cropped and also other values within her design. So first off, her skin color is really similar to the color of the shirt she's wearing, so it's kind of hard to distinguish what's skin, what's flesh, versus what's cloth, what's knit. Also, the image was extremely cropped, like I mentioned, which means I don't really get a good view of her torso, her ears, her tail, and I can kind of excuse the torso. It's a VTuber, those typically are bust up, waist up at most, but I kind of need to know what the ears look like. Those are usually in the models, and you cropped basically everything but the base. And then, finally, her face kind of isn't a face. I'm gonna try my best to figure out what exactly is what, and fill in the missing points, but I'll be honest, there's a lot of leeway in interpretation. Now, to me, it seems that Yami Tsu is wearing a large, chunky cream sweater with an orange front panel, decorative shoulder pads on the shoulders, of course. It seems her ears, that, like I mentioned, are barely in frame, they seem to be attached to the top of her head opposed to the side of her head. They have a more cone shape, which would be similar to the nine-tailed fox from Naruto. Her eyes seem extremely glossy, and she has a longer nose bridge, that's how I'm going to interpret that line at least. And her nose and mouth aren't very prominent in it. Her tail seems slim, sleek, and lacking a lot of fluff that I would put normally on Tsu. It seems to be attached higher on the spine instead of the tailbone, and it seems to be more prehensile or flexible. Instead of a stick, it's more of a S. Now, in contrast, Tsu's wearing a more traditional drawstring hoodie in the colors of crimson and cream, and she's wearing a pair of black running shorts. Her ears are more triangular and attached to the side of her head, similar to a fennec fox, except not as large, in some photos. Tsu's eyes are also two-toned with no black pupil, and instead those tones form highlights and shadows within the iris itself. She has a small button nose and no visible lips, but mouth is still noticeable, so, just a basic smile. Her tail is wide and fluffy and is affixed to her tailbone. Now, I did take a couple creative liberties when it came to Yamatsu's design, aside from, my interpretations of her face not being a face. And these were face shape, eye shape, and figure. None of these went against the design I was given, but they were also conscious choices I made during the design process to really differentiate her from Tsu. First, I gave Yamatsu a slightly longer face and a more prominent chin. This isn't extremely different, and it was more of an aftermath of an anime design versus a cartoon design. Tsu has a jaw more similar to a 20-teens animation in a style that was dubbed the CalArt style for a period of time due to multiple artists from that school coming out and making cartoons with the same face. Think Steven Universe, Amazing World of Gumball, Gravity Falls, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Yamatsu, meanwhile, has a traditionally thin jaw from animes and has a very pointed chin. So to keep that distinction, I changed her jaw shape and refrained from giving her a fat cheek like I normally do for Tsu and my other characters. Next is eye shape. Yamatsu's design doesn't have the upper lid connected to the lower lid, and she has a thicker lining on her upper eye than she does her lower eye. Her lower lid also kind of blends in a bit with her face with no extremely clear dividing line, which is a common issue in AI-generated faces. As such, I separated her upper and lower lids and kept her lower lids thin with a large white spike on the outer edge. Meanwhile, her upper lid transitions into a winged eyelash short after reaching the maximum height of the eye curve. Her eyeball itself has a pie cut design due to how glossy and wavy they appear in design. Tsu's eyes, meanwhile, are entirely connected, have a flatter bottom, and a prominent lash exists near the base of the eye. Finally, I made Yamatsu flatter than Tsu. Scandalous, I know. Tsu has a plumper hourglass figure that's noticeable under her clothing, despite her clothing not being overly tight. Yamatsu, on the other hand, wears a large loose sweater that completely swamps her figure, which was more thin and straight. Yamatsu also hides her hands because AI is famous for messing up hands, so I like to think that she would hide them. The difference in figure is mostly due to anime VTubers, which the AI is trying to refer to, typically is either thin and flat or thin and busty, so I just went with the thin overall model. And that's not to say every model is, it's just a noticeable amount are. Now when it comes to color palette, I just used the color picker tool and selected tones from the images that I'm basing both of them on. With Yamatsu, I had to simplify her color palette just due to how many colors there were. It's very soft blending. As such, most of her design is a unified flat color, but when it came to her irises, I picked out about 4 different colors, which were yellow, red, green, and black. Another thing, there's a lot of same color overlapping in Yamatsu's design. There are large areas of the same or very similar colors. If the outlines disappeared at this point, the figure would become extremely muddled and hard to tell. And part of this is due to posing, but part of it is also just unclear separation areas. Tsu has a lot of unified colors, but each color appears in at least 2 different areas that are typically separated from one another, with the exception of the hair and the tail, which just kind of hit the same point. If Tsu's outlines went away, some areas would be muddled, such as designs in her hair or hair transitioning to tail, but a lot of it would still be clear and recognizable. Another thing to note is the level of color saturation and range of tones in both pieces. Yamatsu uses a much more vibrant orange in her hair and has very vibrant shades of yellow, green, and red in her eyes. However, the colors in her eyes are very similar in tone and are very saturated as seen by them being dark grays when put under a black and white filter. Also, all the colors used in her outfit are extremely close in tone and are very desaturated as seen by the pale gray under the black and white filter, and similar to her skin tone as I mentioned before. Her hair and skin do have good contrast, but her ears are very dark and a deep saturated blue which makes them stand out against orange. If you don't know, orange and blue are complementary colors, meaning put them next to each other, they're gonna pop. The range in tones used are all very extreme, but they're not well balanced, and a majority of the colors are from the same family, specifically of cream. Tsu, on the other hand, has about 2 dark colors which appear in her outfit, that being the gray of her shorts and the crimson of her hoodie. Otherwise, most of her colors, aside from her skin, which is extremely pale, because I'm extremely pale, and I wanted to be represented, is mid-tone grays, meaning that they're about equally saturated while not being the same tone. The contrast in her color palette is subtle but noticeable. Also, the main color family for her was orange, but using the entire spectrum of orange, so cream, orange, and brown instead of just orange. Now, when it comes to shading, I didn't use the color picker, and instead I shaded both the way I normally would shade my art. I pick a color that is analogous to the piece's main color's complement, and then by using the multiply layer and playing with opacity, I draw in shadows where it's needed. In this case, since both pieces are mainly orange and cream tones, I decided to shade them with a purple color. Now let me walk you through that. Orange. Opposite of orange, its complement is blue. Analogous means it's on either side, so I would have gone with green or purple. I think purple's just a better color to shade with. That's why the shadows are purple. As for highlights, I used a white watercolor brush on them and just highlighted where each image kind of wanted it. Typically, I don't really do highlights, and I especially don't do soft highlights like that. I like to do cell shading, but, you know, I had been doing a lot of Tsu's designs on Yamatsu, so it was only fair that I did one thing from Yamatsu, and that would be the softer highlights. Because, you know, fair is fair. And so, here they are! AI's Yamatsu and my Tsu. Now, personally, I think Tsu has a lot more cohesive and put-together design, but hey, I'm extremely biased because I'm her creator, so let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Who has the better design? Now, moving forward, I will be keeping Tsu's design mostly the same, but her model does need an update since I drew her model like one of the first things I did of her, so it's very outdated. My style has changed since then. So I would like to update her, but that's for another day, another video. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and yes, you did/are doing those things right now. You are, don't question it, you don't have free will, this is not your anime, you're not the protagonist, and neither am I. Okay, love you guys, see you later, bye!